And now to Saudi Arabia, where sub-zero temperatures in recent days have led to an unusual sight, a blanket of snow in the desert. Now, Saudi Arabia has a hot desert climate, but now snow covers desert sands in the central and northwestern regions. Cars are skidding on roads because many motorists are unfamiliar with driving over ice. But excited Saudis are making the most of it as some make snowmen and have snowball fights.
Sources report a tornado has killed at least 3 people in northeastern Alabama. 4 other people were critically injured, and a 24-hour daycare center was completely destroyed in Idler in DeKalb County. According to reports, the 3 fatalities reported near Highway 71 in Rosalie, Alabama, says the National Weather Service. The Jackson County Sheriff's Office reported the 3 people who died were all in one home.
This year has been a terrible one for our climate, and it may be about to get worse. According to Geek.com, huge pieces of the Pine Island Glacier in Antarctica have been shearing off. Scientists believe this isn't because of normal glacial movement, but instead the result of huge cracks in the ice that are being exacerbated by warm ocean temperatures. The Pine Island Glacier holds back the larger West Arctic ice sheet, so logically, there's a chance that the ice sheet may also slide into the sea. This would add enough water to increase global sea levels by about 3 meters.
As the U.S. and the world prepare for the incoming climate skeptic Trump administration, imagine a world melting away. In the Arctic and the Antarctic, NASA has found massive chunks of sea ice are plunging into the water, with the worst ice depletion since records began in the 1970s, and at a time when ice should be building up. Temperatures are 30 degrees above normal at the North Pole. The amount of ice in the Arctic is almost 1 million square kilometers less than the amount there was last year, which itself was a record low. While in Antarctica, there's been a devastating surprise. The ice level there is now at record lows, but it had just recently been increasing, making it something of a cause célèbre for climate change deniers. But now the overall trajectory is depressingly clear. And the weird weather isn't limited to the world's poles. Siberia's already cool temperatures are descending, with schools in central Russia forced to shut their doors because of temperatures that now hover around minus 36 degrees Celsius.
And new at 7 o'clock, a mystery disease ravaging the willow trees in the elfin forest. They're dying off at an alarming rate, and scientists have no idea why. 10 News reporter Vanessa Van Hefty went into the North County forest with the conservation experts who are racing to find an answer.
This is the area here in Elfin Forest that scientists call ground zero. You can see here everything has mysteriously died. The leaves are all black.
So these are the dying shoots.
Scientists are searching for clues to find a silent killer in Elfin Forest. It's a deadly mystery no one has been able to solve. These giant willows are rapidly dwindling in Elfin Forest, and no one knows why. Leonard Whitwer with the Escondido Creek Conservancy says it started in the spring.
It started out with just a few trees, and at the sort of the peak infestation, it was probably 3 or 4 acres.
Giant mounds of dead stumps and branches clog the creek bed where there are no signs of life.
It's disconcerting, to say the least.
At first, scientists from UC Riverside thought it was the shot-hole borer beetle, known to attack willows by the hundreds of thousands in Southern California. But tests shot that theory down. Now they're bagging more evidence, trying to find the culprit. They believe it's some type of fungus.
I don't see any insect activity.
The willow death has a ripple effect, hurting endangered songbirds and other wildlife, and all these standing trees are a feeding ground for potential wildfires. They've closed trails and are warning people not to take the wood until they know what's on it.
If you burn firewood, try to keep it as local as possible.
Scientists hope to get some answers. Those new test results should be back in 7 to 10 days. In Elfin Forest, Vanessa Van Hefty, 10 News.
Good evening, everyone. 3 people are confirmed dead, 14 others hurt in the massive wildfires still burning in the Great Smoky Mountains.
There are Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge residents who have lost everything tonight, and the fires forced thousands of tourists to flee. We have team coverage tonight from Sevier County. Let's start with Chris Conti in Gatlinburg. Chris, have firefighters made any headway in battling these blazes?
Well, Carrie, tonight the Smoky Mountains are living up to their names. Across the darkness on the mountainside back there, dozens of fires are still burning, and the winds here are supposed to pick up again this evening over 60 miles an hour, meaning that this could become an incredibly volatile situation once again. But the most devastating news out of Sevier County today were the deaths. 3 people have lost their lives in the last 24 hours, making this now the largest and most devastating fire in the last century that Tennessee has seen.
No one had a clue that it was going to happen that fast.
The sunset across East Tennessee only brought uncertainty as the Smoky Mountains continued to live up to their name.
We continue to learn devastating news.
From officials in Gatlinburg Tuesday afternoon came the news no one wanted.
I have now been able to confirm the loss of 3 lives in Sevier County. We're deeply saddened.
3 deaths, 13,000 acres, making this the largest, most devastating fire Tennessee has seen in a century. From the air today, Governor Haslam saw the destruction firsthand.
You can tell how fast the fire went because they're burned to a lot of them are burned to the ground. It's a little numbing, to be honest with you, to see the extent of the damage.
This fire, which had no mercy, struck under the cover of darkness, and it spared little, including the mayor's home.
A couple hours ago, I had an opportunity to drive through town and confirm the fact that my house was gone and my business of 31 years is gone.
Dozens of structures across Sevier County continue to burn. What they fear here the most is the wind, which could create another terrifying night here.
You know, it happened so fast, it was staggering. You know, when you've got wind up to 87 miles an hour pushing fire, I mean, people were basically running for their lives.
The only kind of fire anyone in the Smoky Mountains wants to see tonight is the orange glow of the setting sun.
We're resilient and we're going to make it.
I want you to think about something. Remember the last time that you sat around a campfire? That is the smell that permeates this entire area as it is still shrouded in smoke from those fires that are burning tonight. There are still neighborhoods across Sevier County that fire officials haven't been able to reach to check on people because of down power lines and debris. Tonight, Eastern Tennessee remains under a level 3 state of emergency. We are live at the Great Smoky Mountain National Park this evening. Chris Conti, News Channel 5.
Sources report a tornado has killed at least 3 people in northeastern Alabama. 4 other people were critically injured, and a 24-hour daycare center was completely destroyed in Idler in DeKalb County. According to reports, the 3 fatalities reported near Highway 71 in Rosalie, Alabama, says the National Weather Service. The Jackson County Sheriff's Office reported the 3 people who died were all in one home.
Overseas, the fires that ravaged Israel over the past week and a half have been some of the worst in its history. While Israeli firefighters struggle to bring the flames under control, volunteer firefighters from the U.S. helped during the crisis. Chris Mitchell brings us that story.
4 major fires swept throughout Israel. They were dangerous and difficult.
They were bad. They were bad. I've been on some wildland forest fires back in the States. And they were just as bad as those.
If you stand in front of it, it's going to burn right over you. If you try to run behind it, you can't catch up to it.
With Israeli firefighters stretched to their limit on Thanksgiving Day, the call went out to U.S. firefighters to help.
Amazing how all the American people stood behind Israel when we made the call.
Probably within 6 hours, we had 39 people ready to go.
When they arrived, they deployed throughout the country.
Kind of hit the ground running. As soon as we got here, we started going on calls right away. We were able to help out with some wildland fires, with some structure apartment fires.
They came as part of a program called EVP, Emergency Volunteer Project.
The goal of the project is to find the supporters of Israel that want to have their boots on the ground in Israel during crisis.
Some came during big moments in their lives.
Just before I came, I proposed to my girlfriend, so she is now my fiance, Kathleen Humphreys, and we've been doing wedding planning over the phone.
For Israeli firefighters, it meant a lot to see so many come.
It always makes a good feeling for us to know that someone overseas care about us and thinking about us, prepared to come and help us.
EVP volunteers also responded during the 2014 war with Hamas. It's a call firefighters answer when their brothers call.
The best way to describe it is a brotherhood. Just like they are your family at home, this is my family at work. And we keep in contact even when we're not in Israel.
Many of the U.S. firemen are Christians and feel a call to stand with Israel.
From the very beginning, I believe that God commands us to stand by them, that we're to be an advocate for Israel, we're to love them. My first trip here, I was given a prophetic word on Isaiah 40, comfort my people. So it means everything to be able to be a part of their lives.
It's a relationship that's expected to keep growing.
This is not going to stop. We love being here. They love having us here.
It's truly an honor for me to come here and be with the guys here in the fire station.
When we called our friends and we asked for their help, they came, and they came big time.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Non-stop Saudi war on Yemen since March 2015 has created a vast humanitarian crisis across the country. Millions of Yemenis face risks to their safety and basic rights and are struggling to survive. To put insult to their injury, the United Nations says suspected cholera cases have risen into thousands in Yemen, less than a month since the outbreak of the disease. According to the UN, there is now 7,700 suspected cases in a dozen governorates in Yemen.
We have received many cases with severe diarrhea. Some of them are due to damaging food infrastructure, while others suffer from cholera due to inhalation of poisonous gas and smokes from Saudi airstrikes.
This diseases quarantine center in Hodeidah province receives the highest volume of people who are suffering from cholera. Manager of the center says that there are many reasons behind the unprecedented breakout of the cholera in the province as well as across the country, calling for an international investigation into Saudi use of internationally banned weapons.
We've received tens of confirmed cholera cases in Hodeidah. There are confirmed deaths from cholera. However, with the intensive medical campaigns carried out by the country's remaining hospitals and with the help of international organizations, we do our best to lessen the death rate from the disease.
The World Health Organization has warned that the scarcity of drinkable water has worsened the hygiene situation in Yemen, fueling a marked increase in cases of severe diarrhea, in particular among people displaced from their homes in the center of the country. Despite the fact that international organizations are helping eradicate the disease, the number of people affected with cholera is on increase across the country. This as half of the health facilities are closed or partially functioning due to the Saudi Arabia's relentless war on the country. Mohammed Al-Attab, Press TV, Sana'a.
Official sources say 90 cases of cholera had been confirmed by November 17th, and 7.6 million people are at risk. Cholera has added to the suffering of civilians in the war-battered country, where years of conflict has left 7.4 million children without medical help.
The UN admitted it failed to properly treat sewage from its base in Haiti, which led to the contamination of the largest river in the country. This negligence led to the spread of a deadly disease, cholera. And now, after years of denying any involvement in the matter, the United Nations finally is taking some responsibility. At least it appears so. RT's Trinity Chavez has the very latest.
For the first time, the UN has admitted their involvement in the cholera outbreak in Haiti. The disease has killed almost 10,000 Haitians and have infected more than 800,000. Now, lawyers are seeking compensation for those sickened by the disease or killed. They say the UN is to blame. The outbreak has paralyzed Haiti for years, but now United Nations says that it needs to do much more to address its own involvement in the epidemic. Researchers say that there is an overwhelming amount of evidence that the deadly disease contaminated Haiti's largest river in 2010, killing about 7% of Haiti's population. As of March, the disease killed an average of 37 people a month. a result of inadequate treated sewage from the UN peacekeeping base. The UN has never accepted responsibility for any wrongdoing in this matter, and their response? Diplomatic immunity to lawsuits filed on behalf of victims in the U.S. courts. But UN spokesperson Farhan Haq came a little closer to acknowledging the organization's involvement in the matter and promises a significant set of UN actions. He told reporters yesterday, over the past year, the UN has become convinced it needs to do much more regarding its own involvement in the initial outbreak and the suffering of those affected by cholera. But exactly what does this mean, to do more? The UN has yet to disclose any details or information on what they're doing to resolve this matter. A problem that has been going on for years. Brian Kincannon, a human rights attorney whose nonprofit represents many of the victims, says that there's going to be no easy solution.
We don't know there's going to be a resolution. What we do know is that the cholera victims, their lawyers, us, and many other people are committed to keep fighting until the UN responds justly. But there is no indication that the UN itself has made the decision it's going to respond in a just manner. It's up to everybody who cares about justice and about poverty in Haiti to keep pressuring the UN until they take their responsibilities.
The UN has struggled to remove cholera as a part of a 10-year program and has only been able to raise a quarter of the $2.1 billion that they would need. The UN is supposed to make a statement within the next 2 months, giving updates on what they're doing to tackle cholera in Haiti. Reporting in New York, Trinity Chavez, RT.
The Philippines officially declares HIV an epidemic among youth. According to the National Youth Commission, an estimated 62% of the country's new HIV infections are a result of young people between the ages of 15 and 24. Aiza Sigera, the commission's chairwoman, called HIV/AIDS, quote, one of the most urgent concerns facing the Filipino youth today. She added that unprotected sex is the main driver of the epidemic. The World Health Organization says HIV in the Philippines is on the rise, in part because of a lack of sex education and because protection from sexually transmitted infections, including condoms, is widely unavailable. The spike in HIV infections is relatively recent. Between 2010 and 2015, there were 20,000 new cases. That's more than the total cases of between 1984 and the early 2000s. The Department of Health reports there have been 7,756 new cases of HIV in the Philippines this year, and the total number could balloon to 133,000 cases by 2022. For Newsbeat Social, I'm Molly Reel.
The Japanese government says the avian influenza detected in recent days is identical to the highly pathogenic H5N6 strain seen here in Korea. Japan's Kyodo News Agency reports that agricultural authorities have confirmed the bird flu spreading across northern parts of the country is exactly the same as the virus found in Korean poultry. Officials suspect the strain has been transmitted by birds flying into Japan, but they plan to conduct further investigations into it. Earlier this week, Japan confirmed its first bird flu outbreak in 2 years after 40 birds were found dead from the H5N6 strain. More than 300,000 chickens have been culled at a farm in Niigata and more than 16,000 ducks in Aomori.
According to UNAIDS, some 36.7 million people around the world are living with HIV. Huge progress has been made over the past 15 years, yet still every year 1 million people die from AIDS-related illnesses and 2 million people become newly infected with HIV. Although treatment is now available, less than half of all people living with HIV have access to life-saving medication. And there is a real risk that the epidemic could rebound if greater progress isn't made in stopping new HIV infections among adults. For the past 5 years, new HIV infections among adults have failed to decline, contributing to growing numbers of people living with HIV and in need of treatment. The range of HIV prevention options has never been as wide as it is today. These options must be made available to the people most vulnerable to HIV infection, including women and girls, men who have sex with men, transgender people, sex workers, and people who inject drugs. And more investments are needed for research and innovation to discover a vaccine and a cure for HIV, and to improve access to antiretroviral therapy so that all people living with HIV can live long and productive lives. Ending the AIDS epidemic by 2030, a part of the Sustainable Development Goals, is possible, but only if we join forces to fast-track the response to HIV today.